Okay, we're rolling.
All right. Call the meeting to order here at West Dakota Water Development District November meeting. So you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, our bylaw is not here, so does anybody else want to get it? Okay, please stand up for the invitation.
Dear Lord, please let us have a nice civil meeting. Please look out for everyone that is dealing with stress from the pandemic. And I hope that with your power that everything will get better soon. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Next item is for the roll call.
Roll call. Coe.
Here.
Bjerke.
Here.
Driscoll. Here. Jovic.
Here.
Nautigal.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Mack.
Here.
Violata. Harris.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay.
One absent.
Okay, thank you. Next item is to approve the agenda for the evening. Are there any items that need to be changed, removed, or anything like that? Yes.
On the current agenda, can we separate 17 to vote to instate a new treasurer as a separate item and chair's comments as an 18 or 17A? Or do you,
Sure.
or just since that might be an actionable item?
Make chairman's comments 17A.
Yeah, or 18, whatever the chair prefers.
Yeah, we'll just make it 17A. Very good. Anything else? Motion to approve. So moved by Driscoll, seconded by Bob. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item 5 is approval of minutes from the August meeting. Linda, any comments?
Nope. We just entertain a motion.
Everybody? Moved by Driscoll to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Nathan. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Conflict of interest, number 6. Are there any items on the agenda this evening that any of the board members would have a conflict of interest? Wendy?
I have a conflict.
And which item was that?
I am looking for it. Sorry.
Is that number 9?
It is, I believe, number 9. Yes, it is number 9.
Okay, very good.
I do believe I have a conflict of interest as I live in that development
Very
of Valley
good.
Heights.
Okay. Is there any other items that anybody has a conflict of interest? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Item number 7 is the treasurer's report. Yeah?
Okay. Bring it up here. Okay, currently, funds on hand, approximately 545,000. We are expecting the revenue based on the levy and a little bit of interest to be about 211,000. We've collected 128,000 in tax levy, so we'll be getting another big check here in December for another 80,000 or so. And I'll try to make this quick here. Here's the bank accounts. This is slightly overestimated because there's some checks that haven't cleared. But you can see we have really 4 accounts. We have 2 CDs, a 12-month and a 24-month, and those are the dates they started. Each one is about 200,000 in savings. We have about 140,000, a little bit in checking, and the total again is about 550,000. Projects, I put this in, you can read it, probably not on the screen very easy, but I guess the bottom line is we have obligations of approximately 81,000 on the outstanding projects. That's all I have.
Okay. A motion to approve the treasurer's report? Moved by Bob, seconded by Tom? Seconded by Tom. Any discussion on the treasurer's report?
I've got a question.
Okay, Nathan?
The funds on hand, looks like that includes the projected revenue for 2020.
This is just what, no, this is what we have now in our bank accounts
Okay.
and the
that-
CDs.
So it doesn't include the 80,000 you mentioned?
No.
Does not? Okay.
So that'll be, ironically, that's about how much we have in project obligations too, is 80,000. So might almost call that a wash there.
Okay. Any other questions? Motions for approval. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Item number 8, Dave Holland, consultant, to address the board. Linda, do you want to introduce Dave?
I will. It is my pleasure to introduce Dave Holland. He is a professional engineer with Northwater Consulting. He is a Rapid City resident. He happens to live in my district, District 9. And Dave is pretty passionate about water. He contacted me early in September, or in this summer. He was excited about some of the things the board was doing, and
Sorry, Dave, is this, do I have the right one?
You see the West Dakota folder, if you want to click on that.
Okay.
There you go.
well, Dave did attend a couple of our meetings.
Okay.
And after which, he had some observations, and he just wanted to share a possible proposal for the board so we can better do our job. Thank you, Dave.
Cool. Thanks, Linda. Dan, if you wouldn't mind putting that in the presentation mode.
I'd rather not because it messes up my screen.
Okay, no problem. As long as you're moving with me, we're good.
All right.
Cool. So, yeah, I'm Dave Holland. I'm a civil engineer here in Rapid City. And I've worked for a number of different consultants. I currently work for Northwater Consulting. I've been with them all total since 2012. And Northwater Consulting, we're a small firm. And just to give you a little bit of background, in 2012, 2013, we approached the West Dakota Water Development District to look at a watershed management plan for Rapid Creek. At the time, various other actors were also working on a Spring Creek watershed management plan. You may be aware of that one. And this was kind of on the tail end of that. And there are a couple of impairments on Rapid Creek that have been identified through various DE&R reports and studies by the School of Mines. And so we wanted to take those recommendations of the DE&R and the School of Mines and take them one step further. And so the board gave us a small chunk of money to try to drum up support and get a watershed management plan moving along for Rapid Creek. There were various roadblocks that came up. There was a few issues with the city of Rapid City. They weren't really interested in something like that at this time. DE&R really wanted the city signed on, and also the West Dakota board was in a transition period, and it was kind of no longer a priority of theirs. And so that project kind of went on the shelf, and it's kind of just sat there for a while. And we've been kind of waiting to see if priorities would change. And so that's, I think, always a possibility, something we'd like to work on. But as Linda said, I'd like to talk just a little bit today about maybe a way for the board to put a little bit of planning or kind of a document together that might direct some of their decisions. The last meeting that I was at, the director of the East Dakota board was here, and he kind of said they have a similar plan. And I thought, well, we should have that here, something that kind of guides the decisions and what the board does. So if you wouldn't mind hitting the next slide there. I kind of walked you in just a little bit about who I am, a little bit of introduction, why I'm here. I'm going to talk just a little bit about some planning, like what that might look like, and then, ultimately, what would we do on the ground, implementation, what that might look like, and then maybe some ideas, potential next steps. So the purpose why I'm here, to create a plan similar to the East Dakota Development District, to help guide decisions, projects, and how money is spent, the West Dakota Development District money. The next one. To identify the greatest threats to water quality in the district. So when I did a lot of that, I really buried myself in Rapid Creek and all the actors and the reports and the studies and everything that had been done, and we learned a lot about water quality in the district. And I wish we could put that in a short, concise document that you all and the public could see. Most people aren't going to read 60-page studies, but I wish we could put it into a real concise document, because there are some serious issues with water quality, especially in Rapid Creek, and I imagine some other ones, that I wish the board was maybe more targeted and focused on those issues, kind of based on science and data that USGS and DNR have already done. They've done a lot of our homework for us. So identify what those threats to water quality are, and focus more of our time and energy on those that are already identified, rather than what appears to me kind of the way the board operates right now is somebody thinks of a project, they bring it before the board looks at it, good, bad, or ugly, and says yes or no. But really, have we looked at a more global perspective of water in the district, rather than, just as people bring them to the board? That's what I'm talking about. And then so I think that would feed right into having the best effect on water in the district, how the money is spent. It would actually go towards things that we've identified as threats to water quality.
So do you want to wait until the end for questions?
No, go right ahead. I'd rather a discussion, absolutely.
So as I look at that, you're just talking about water quality. So we've got two issues that I see that we deal with in relation to water. Water quality is one, water quantity is another. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be having some presentations tonight about developing water resources, and I think from my perspective that might be more important, to get water to people, and then we can focus on water quality. But I don't see, are you talking water quantity also, water production in your plan here?
Well, so what I would propose is the development district, West Dakota, has 3 stated goals. One of them is better utilization of water resources through water conservation. Another one is proper water management. And the other one is related to water quality and a few other things. Mm-hmm. And so, put those at the top of the plan and say, okay, this is what the district is charged with doing. And so let's try to make most of our activities align with that. And so that's what the plan would be, aligned around, is the stated mission of the district.
Okay. But I don't see, all I see is water quality up there.
Yeah, I guess my intent was to, address the mission statement of the district. So I could add a couple points there.
Okay.
So, Dan, if you could move it right along, thank you. So this is what I mean by planning. So defining our water resources. So what water are we talking about? We have groundwater, we have surface water, we have stormwater, we have, put categories in the plan and talk about each one. Where is it? How much is it? Is it being contaminated? Is it not? Is it fine? Kind of talk about each one of those areas. How are we measuring them? When we looked at the Rapid Creek data, there were some gaps in the data. We didn't have monitoring stations where we'd really like to have them. And I know the board since then is working on trying to develop a monitoring station more in the middle of Rapid City, which is kind of one of the things we identified. But there are other gaps that aren't being measured at the moment that we would need to make good decisions with water. And then I kind of talked about, trying to identify what the greatest threats are. So some of those studies have already done that. We have TMDL, which is kind of an impairment, you could call that on Rapid Creek, for sediment, and we have another one for bacteria. And so to kind of bring those up and talk about those, they're already in the paperwork, but let's talk about those. And maybe there's some already recommendations that have been made to address those. You can go
So,
ahead.
David,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Wendy. Nice
Yeah,
to
hey,
meet
Wendy.
you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Mhm.
I have a question for you. Who have you been working with on this project? Anybody in the area as far as the leaders of the water sanitation districts? Anybody you've been in contact with to visit with them about the quality of Rapid Creek water and where it is also coming from?
So back when we did that, we had that effort back in 2013, 2014.
Okay.
I met with about any actor you could imagine. I went to all their meetings. I sat down. I gave presentations to the county, to the Soil Conserv NRCS board. I went to a couple of their meetings. Who else? I talked to Game Fish and Parks. And we created a couple of documents, a couple of reports. We submitted them to the West Dakota board. I'm happy to give you copies of those on some of the
Sure.
work that we did and some of the feedback that we got. We had quite an informative meeting at the Caputa store, all the ranchers down there. They're the ones that are downstream of everybody, and they're the ones that have to live with the water by the time it gets down there. They were pretty fired up. They wanted to do something. And it's a little sad that it didn't go anywhere, but, we can always try again. But I can certainly get you that information. This presentation today, I kind of see as just a kicking off. I'm just throwing ideas out there. I haven't really talked to anybody since 2013, 2014, and I just want to see what the board thinks about it. If they want to proceed with one of the next steps I have at the end, fine. If they don't, no worries. I'm just kind of presenting some ideas for y'all to think about today.
Sure, I respect that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I think it'd be helpful. I have not seen that report that you're talking about.
Okay.
I'm sure we have it probably somewhere, but
Yeah.
have you seen it?
Somewhere.
If you've got
I've seen
if
the
you've got
Spring Creek one.
if you could make us a copy of that,
Absolutely.
I'd like to take a look and see what's been done personally.
Yeah, will do. So in the planning realm, list of realistic, sustainable, and effective solutions. I'm not sure. I'd like to go up into the Spring Creek watershed. There was a whole effort that was done over a number of years, and I'd like to see what was done and if it was effective, if it's still there. I was up running on the Mickelson Trail, and I saw a bunch of cows down by a creek making quite a mess, and I wonder if that was ever part of it. Landowners aren't always interested in signing up for a project like this, and we're fine with that. It's an optional kind of thing. But I'd like to see what sort of strategies were tried and which ones worked. And so that's what I mean by realistic, sustainable, and effective. Let's go back and see what's been tried, and if it's not working, let's try something else. But we do have at least one of those watershed plans that has been done in the district that we could sort of build off of. And so another one is, we don't have to recreate the wheel here. There's been a lot of recommendations by the USGS and DENR of things to do, and we can kind of, unearth those in the reports and bring them to light and say, hey, this is some data they've found, some conclusions they've made. One of them, I'm not going to hit it exactly right. Maybe Dan can shed some light on it. He has worked for USGS. But, we have the 100-year storm event. Everybody's aware of that. But we also have a 50-year and a 25-year kind of the rain event that's expected to happen once every 25 or 100 years. But we also have a 2-year storm event that's only supposed to happen once every 2 years. And according to the gauging stations, it's happening, I think, 6 times a year right now. So Rapid Creek is getting a lot more volume off the streets and houses in Rapid City than it historically has. And so that's having a big effect on erosion in the creek, and that's why we're getting a lot of downstream sediment. And so that's one of the things I unearthed in one of the reports just a little tidbit for you to think about. But that's kind of some of the other stuff that might come up if we did a bit more of a thorough research and study like this. All right, Dan, if you wouldn't mind moving along. This is just a quick slide I actually pulled out of a presentation I did on that Rapid Creek watershed plan. This is the TMDL that I'm talking about, the impairment on Rapid Creek. And so it's actually from is it Farmington or Farmingdale? Farmingdale. It's actually the very lower end until Rapid Creek dumps into the Cheyenne River. That's the area that, you know, the sediment is accumulating. And what they mean by a TMDL, a maximum daily load, so the environment can kind of absorb a certain amount of pollution or contaminate, you know, until it becomes too much and it can't take it anymore. And so they have kind of a limit that they define. Every creek, every reach of every creek is a little bit different. And so once it passes that limit, we have more sediment than the environment can handle. They say, okay, we have an impairment on this creek. And there's a number of different parameters. It can be E. coli, it can be bacteria, it can be phosphorus, nitrogen, it can be a whole manner of things. In this particular case, it's sediment, largely from probably the excess volume that's coming off the streets and houses in Rapid City. If you can move right along.
Just a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're talking about excess. What is the time frame, and does it cover the part about Pactola? Last 2 years, it's just been releasing, you know, huge amounts of money or water down Rapid Creek, and that did a lot more damage than I suspect any of the runoff from the streets did.
So if you dig into some of the details of those reports, we have multiple monitoring stations along the creek. And so usually we can account for, so we have a monitoring station before Rapid City, and we have a monitoring station after Rapid City. So we can calculate, we can figure out how much has hit the creek just within city limits, because we have one before and we have one after. So that would account for the releases at Pactola. Yeah.
Well, it was the really wet years that we had a little problem with that. And I know that from people that live downstream. And did you have a chance to look at some of the studies that this board in the last 4 years have done?
I haven't.
I'd encourage you to look into the E. coli and figure out, we did figure out that the biggest polluters above the base of Canyon Lake was geese and dogs. No ruminants, deer, humans, because the sampling that was done downstream was specifically done to detect the DNA of all those creatures. And so the biggest problem we have, and the reason we're looking at a single point in the middle of the reach of 8 miles between the bottom of Canyon Lake and the East St. Patrick Street Bridge, to try to figure out why there is a lot more human contamination in that reach and where it starts, and then try to figure out where it's coming from that.
Yeah.
Splitting that down. But so there are a few studies that are going to be useful to have you look at.
Absolutely. Yeah, I wrote it down here.
Okay.
I'll be sure to follow up.
There are 2 of those.
And just so you know, I maybe didn't mention it. So North Water, we do a lot of watershed management plans. We do a lot of them in rural areas, working with ranchers and farmers. We put in a lot of stock dams, a lot of vegetated strips, a lot of grass swales and fields and such like that. One of the strategies that we recommend, landowners aren't always up to it, but don't mow right down to the water. So if you have a whole bunch of geese and it rains and it washes their, poop down there, it has a chance to filter through tall grass before it hits the creek or the lake. So that's just something simple that you can do, but not everybody wants to do that, People want to get down to the lake and fish or whatever. So,
Thank you.
But it's, just an idea that kind of comes out when we have a problem. Well, there's available solutions.
So, David, I have a question for you. Is the purpose of this to talk about, I'm trying to find the right words here, to fully guide and direct the decisions of West Dakota, or just certain areas, depending on whether it's a ranch, a farm, the city, a community? and I'm not at all trying to be disrespectful, I'm just trying to understand, what exactly are you trying to guide as far as decision making?
So I think the plan could give like a framework, but of course I don't think it would say you have to spend this much money on this project in this year. It would just be a tool that you could use, and you could have like a guideline for a budget. And so let's say that you identified like surface water as being the most threatened water supply or water that is in the West Dakota district. And so you could have as a recommendation at the end of the plan, we would like to try to keep about 40% of our money attacking surface water threats because it's been defined as a problem, rather than maybe spending a lot of money on groundwater that maybe hasn't been documented as being polluted or contaminated. You know what I mean? It's a way of using the research and the science that we already have to make kind of just a simple guideline or a table to say, we'd like to put 20% on groundwater remediation, we'd like to put 40% on surface water, we'd like to put so many percent. And so it would give you kind of some buckets. And so you could say, okay, well, really we should be spending more money on surface water remediation because that's what's really threatened in our district.
Sure.
And so that's what I mean by just kind of a guiding document, not necessarily specific projects outlined. Sometimes, like the state of South Dakota in their drinking water revolving loan fund, they actually have lists of projects. People submit them and they score them and they put them in order based on priority. And you have to get in that list, you know, months and sometimes years ahead of time, depending on how much money you want.
Sure.
So you can do something similar here.
Sure. Didn't mean to interrupt you there.
That's
Sorry.
fine.
So is the intent to work with the state and perhaps rural water, depending on what the needs are in the surrounding area? And then for how long are you talking?
So I'll talk about it a little bit in a few more slides, but I'm not sure I have all that up there. I mean, I've thought about it. So this is what I'm thinking. The state has, what do they call that? The state does a report every 2 years. It's like the state of our waters report, the DENR does.
Integrated report.
Integrated, yeah, report. And I would propose that the district, it would be a bigger effort at first, of course, to write your first plan, but then update it every 2 years, offset by the integrated report. So the integrated report would come out, you would have a year to look at it, see what's changed, and then you could update your report. And so you would update it every 2 years based on what's changing in the district. Of course, if you were gaining some headway and you no longer had certain threats because you put some best management practices in place, then you would no longer need to spend money on those anymore because you fixed them, theoretically. So then you could move your resources to another one that's now becoming a new threat. So hopefully you would be making some progress every couple of years and your plan would be changing.
Sure.
But it would hopefully be a quick and easy update every couple of years.
So suggestions, not, we're talking suggestions, right? Not
Yeah. Yeah.
like definitive, this is what you do kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, the first half of the report would be research. Like, okay, what have we accomplished? What's out there? What's going on? What are the threats? And then base those guidelines on data and research.
Sure.
Is the general idea.
Thank you.
Okay, if you want to move right along, Dan. Thank you. So who writes the plan? I just want to put a little bit of a, kind of an observation that I've noticed among the board. It's great to have volunteers help out. All of you are volunteers. That's awesome. To engage students, it's educational. To engage the School of Mines, they're a great resource locally. But I think it's also a good use of taxpayer money to occasionally, in targeted situations, engage professionals. And I think one of them is going to be presenting today on the water supply project. I think, Linda, you're involved in that too. But that's what I mean, occasionally engaging professionals. I think this plan should be written by a watershed planner, somebody that's done this kind of stuff before. I think it would be a wise use of taxpayer funds to create a structure for how you operate and how you function. So I guess my point is that there's a place for volunteers to contribute, and there's a place for professionals to contribute too. And I'm sure a lot of you recognize that, but I just wanted to say it. If you could move right along, Dan. So another idea I had was appointed areas of focus for directors. You could do it committee by committee, you could do it by individual, and some ideas I had was groundwater. So appoint one person and say, all right, your focus is groundwater. And so you kind of do a deeper dive in that. Surface water would be another one, stormwater, sampling and data collection, and public education could be another sort of focus area for a director. And we've kind of already talked about it a little bit, Wendy asked, but budget guidelines to kind of put that at the back end of the plan. Just what are the budget priorities of the board and kind of use that as a guideline moving forward. Cool. Potential next steps. I only have 2 slides left. So a proposal to develop a planning document. I've kind of talked about that a good bit here. Another idea is to have, I know the board has a couple of consultants that they use occasionally for legal services and such like that. I think it would be a good idea for them to have a watershed planner on retainer. When they have a bigger proposal, they can send it to him. He can review it. He can give a professional opinion on if they think it's a good idea, if it aligns with the plan or the mission statement of the board. I know you have a couple of obviously people that have come from the water sector on the board, but they don't always have the time or the software or the resources to kind of do a little bit deeper dive in some of the bigger projects. So it's just an idea that I had to have a watershed planner on retainer. Next one. I talked a little bit about the Rapid Creek Watershed Management Plan, maybe resurrecting that. And I'll get you that report. You guys can take a look at that. Data gaps, that might be something to look at. Another one is, I've heard, so do's and don'ts in working with landowners. I've heard some comments among some of the board members, we shouldn't be working on private property. Well, it rains everywhere. The water's coming from private property and it's coming from public property. And so Northwater, we work with a lot of private landowners. And the way that we work is generally we approach them at the very early stage of the project and explain what's going on a very, not like a big publicity thing, like on a private level, engage their interest. If they're interested in participating, fine, we'll work with them. But if they're not interested in participating, we don't push anybody. It's a voluntary program to work on sort of if there's going to be any projects or implementation done on your property. So anyway, there are ways to work with landowners, and I'd encourage the board to not shy away from that because we could have a significant contaminant or pollution coming from private property, and I don't think we should just ignore it. Lessons learned from other watershed districts. The report could have a section, well, this is what East Dakota is doing. This is what Denver is doing. This is what Minneapolis is doing. Belle Fourche has some great initiatives. I've been up, I talked to those guys when we were developing the Rapid Creek Watershed Management Plan. Kind of pull in some lessons learned from other districts, see what they're doing, and you guys can kind of learn from them. Also, a new board member informational packet. I asked Linda if she got anything. She said it was mostly administrative, but there was a little bit of kind of bringing them up to speed. I think it would be helpful if a plan like this exists that kind of explains the water resources in the district, that new board members could read it and get up to speed a little quicker in sort of the water world, so they could make a little better decisions on the board. They could be a little more educated. And that's all I had for today. That's my contact information. And I do have a handout that kind of has some of the points in my presentation up here where the agendas are, if anybody's interested.
We don't need to discuss this, but I'll just throw in a comment. As you know, we were looking at the E. coli issue, and the DENR integrated report identifies an E. coli problem. DENR has 3 sampling sites, but they quit sampling E. coli in the wintertime, so we may want to try to activate those to get more data. That's all I had.
Yeah.
And I guess I would just like to thank Dave for coming and just giving us some food for thought. The basic thing that I was taking away from it is that we could have maybe a little more structure and have a plan, and all plans can be flexible. But especially like at tonight's meeting, all of a sudden, we have a lot on the agenda and a few funding requests. And maybe in the future, it would be nice to know what are the priorities. You know, right now, yeah, we have a lot of money. If we spend some of that down, then we may need to prioritize projects by the money available, so.
Thanks for coming, Dave.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks
for having me.
Okay. Next item, number 9, is update and funding request from Valley Heights Estate Group to address water system issues. And Wendy, you're the sponsor of that, so if you want to introduce the topic.
Yep, I would like to introduce Sherry Hinson and Jay Wickham. They are from the Valley Heights community, and that is off of Radar Hill Road. And I'm going to actually step away from the table because I live in that community. So to be fair and to protect the integrity of the vote and the conversation, I would actually remove myself to the audience. But I do want to introduce these guys. They've worked very hard putting together a presentation tonight on the predicament that not only Valley Heights is in, but also the surrounding areas of Valley Heights. And with that, I am actually going to step away because I do live there, so I just make sure everybody understands what that conflict is. So.
Okay, thank you. You have the floor.
Hi, I'm Shara Hinson. I'm a resident out there at Valley Heights. I've been out there for almost 6 years.
And I'm Jay Wickham, and I've only been there a year.
So we're coming to you tonight for a request for funds in the amount of $15,000. And the reason being is because we've been put in kind of a pickle, you would say, in our development. We have 160 of the Valley Heights residents and then other people outside of the area that use the wall water tower that is within, 2-3 miles from our development. Mm-hmm. The water coming from there is provided from Box Elder and then comes to us. Well, that water tower hasn't been upkept and maintained since it's been there, and there's a lot of damage and erosion inside of that water tower. And if it happens to fail, everybody that uses that water tower will be without water, and there is no way for us to get any. And then if they happen to do maintenance on it, we could be down for 7 weeks, if not months, to get it fixed. The piece that is really concerning for us is that Box Elder has been nice enough to bring this to our attention, but they themselves are running out of water. The person, the Deutsch family that owns the water tower, doesn't seem to return calls and be very communicative and willing to fix the water tower. And so that puts us in a spot where we really need a different solution. And so to start for that solution, we want to form a sanitary district so that we can be our own entity and start applying for funds and grants to build our own infrastructure and find different sources of water. That wouldn't be just for the Valley Heights residents. That would also be for the people that are also using that water tower on Morning View Road and a few outside of that on Radar Hill Road. So the funds going to this is going to be for an attorney to guide us down that path and get us in the right direction of getting articles of incorporation, helping us with water use agreements and the bylaws, and then reviewing existing contracts. So there is a contract currently between Box Elder and the Deutsch family, and then so that is also up, and then they would help kind of guide us and evaluate that so that we're sitting in a decent position.
And some residents in our subdivision, they would like to go down the legal path, and why we're not getting our water. But a group of us we feel like the best solution is to move forward because we want to fix the problem, get a sustainable long-term solution for our subdivision, instead of, if we just go down a legal path to try to go back against the people who developed our subdivision, it doesn't fix our problem. And And so the gentleman who owns the Deutsch family, who owns it, he inherited this from his father, and he lives in the state of Colorado, and he's not a developer, he's not. And so our goal is to try and move forward, trying to solve the problem that we have, so that our homes are, that we can live there and not have to worry about a water source. And there's lots of, there's agreements that we're not lawyers, and so we need a lawyer to help us review those current agreements, and like Sheriff said, and draft the newer agreements to do paperwork that we need to move forward with the county to form a sanitation district, and hopefully get a sustainable long-term solution for our people.
Does Valley Heights Estates, do you have a homeowners association now, or what kind of organization do you have?
We really don't. There's not a homeowners association. We do have a road district formed already, and we got new roads paved and such.
If you do look on the Secretary of State's website, under the business corporations, you'll see a Valley Heights Homeowners Association.
Mm-hmm.
When the subdivision was originally formed, there was a homeowners association that was associated with it, and they folded. It's no longer.
It's been
active.
dissolved.
So you two don't really have a position.
We're it.
Position.
Right. We've started a committee of sorts
Okay.
to investigate and research and figure out options. We've held several meetings with the Valley Heights residents, and we got a consensus from them to push forward with this sanitary district. And then once we can get it going and petitioned and approved, then we would hold, the elections for a board and that proper.
Yeah. So how do you pay for your water now? Do you each have meters, or how does that? How do
Yep,
you
we
pay your
each have meters, and we pay box elder.
Yeah. Okay.
And then
Yep.
we also pay a fee to the Deutsch family for being on the private water system.
Okay.
Does the Deutsch family own the water distribution system and the tower?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, they own it, and
So we don't know the condition of our lines. And a couple of years ago, there was some residents that tried getting the district formed, and at that time, we didn't have a whole lot of buy-in. But we've done a lot of research. We've talked to Rapid City. Rapid City doesn't want us. And,
we're expensive to hook up to them.
we are expensive to hook up to because you'd have to push the water up, up the hill. From my understanding, Rusty over at Rapid Valley has the equipment and technology to get water to us, but then the water rights Rapid City holds and does not want to release those. So we're kind of in this position of where can we go, but another is nobody will talk to us unless we're our own district. And once we get the entity formed, then more doors will open up, more conversations can be held, more funding can be had, and so then we can hopefully move in a more positive direction.
So is your goal to purchase this existing water system from the Deutsch family?
Not the water tower.
Our goal is, we do have an estimate from an engineering company.
Okay.
So our goal is to have an engineering company look at our situation and give us what they feel, what all of our options are of where we're at and what the cost for all those options would be. And then, with the understanding, hopefully, that we would have this board, the sanitary district, formed by then, and allow this board to work with an engineering firm to decide what is the best solution for our subdivision.
Right.
We say, well, this is what we want to do. This is what we don't. We're not engineers, so our goal is to form the district so that we can have representative government for the people in our subdivision. They can begin to work with Ferber Engineering or some other engineering company to solve the problem. Because we don't know what the solution is.
And
we just know that where we're currently at, it's not in a good place.
To answer your question, no. Well, we'd have to purchase the lines. We don't want the water tower because it needs so much work, it wouldn't even be worth your money. And that's where the lawyer comes in again, is because then they can negotiate with the Deutsch family on what, do they sell the lines to us? Do they just give them to us because they haven't held up their end of the bargain? That's more for the lawyer and the Deutsch family to hash out rather than us. And so that's another reason why we...
And the water tower that we do know is actually buried in the ground 6 feet because it was too tall
For the
where
airport.
the location is at. So it's actually in the ground, 6 feet, and nobody knows what the condition of that. So that's what kind of moves this forward.
I guess my question is, from West Dakota Water Development District is you really don't have it. I mean, who would we be contracting with?
So we do have a bank account. So when they first started trying to form the district, they did get an employee identification number and they did get a bank account, and so we don't have representative
now,
government. So what you're saying?
I'm the lead.
I was a consulting engineer. I was involved with forming one sanitary district over in eastern South Dakota. Kind of the same deal, similar to what you're talking about. It was wastewater. But they had people like you that came, and they went around to all the people that would potentially be connected to that sanitary sewer system. And they basically got money from each individual to hire an attorney to form the sanitary district. And then you have an organization that you can, come back to us for, if you need assistance to build the system or whatever.
Right.
But I'm not sure from a legal standpoint who would be contracted with. Anybody have a thought on that?
I do.
Yeah. Okay, Nate.
What was the name of the group that you started to form previously?
The first water
2 years ago, yeah.
Valley Heights Sanitation District.
Okay. Is that what you're planning on pursuing?
Yes, it's currently it has a EIN
Good.
and registered with the state and has a bank account. So we would pick up where they left off, and we'd be willing to let you guys pay the attorney themselves instead of handing us money, if need be. We tried the route of getting donations from our residents before when they first started this back 2 years ago, and just to even get $15 for a survey was a nightmare. And there's a lot of people in our development that are on fixed incomes being retired, so it would be more of a headache to try to wrangle all of that up. And being the current situation, I think we're kind of running against the clock.
Did you have something more, Nathan?
Yeah. So one of the thoughts I had, it's a good point that Chairman Bierke brought up. So one of the questions that I have is, could you guys front the money, establish the district? Once the district is established, then we could write them a check for what they're requesting.
Yeah, I'm just thinking from a legal standpoint,
Totally understand.
who are we working for? Who are we contracting with? There's no organization the way it sounds to me right now, because you haven't got the sanitary district. And so I'm glad you brought I mean, I'd heard about the situation from other people.
So can I throw something theoretical out there?
Go ahead, sure.
So Rapid Valley Sanitation District, is it possible for us to work through them, even though we're not, we're not connected to them or
Are you
anything?
contiguous to them?
No, we're not. We don't. But what I'm saying is, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just throwing. Is it possible that Rusty would be willing to work through them to for you guys to contract with them, and then they would facilitate the money to us? Is that something that is?
I don't have an answer.
Okay, I don't either.
That's
why we want to hire a lawyer.
Yeah, you're talking ideas. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'd have to make sure that what we do would be in legal standing for our district.
I understand.
Yep.
Ron?
I empathize. You're kind of in that chicken and egg deal a little bit. But it seems like, even though, as you expressed, it might be difficult to get, help from residents who are served by this, water supply system such as it is right now, that it would be important, for us to partner with whatever your organization would be, and your organization would have some, contribution towards the whole effort, rather than the West Dakota board essentially fronting the money entirely, to form this district. The residents that are there are going to be the end beneficiaries, so we might help, but I think there should be some contribution from the residents.
In the meeting we had, Ron, they are willing to donate some money. So hope you don't think that we don't, that
Right.
we're just like, well, we don't want to pay any money at all, and you know, we want you guys to pay it all. That's not what we're. So we do that meeting we had. We did have residents that are willing to contribute to assist. So this was the first step that we would come to you and talk to you about that, and then we would also visit with our.
Just to follow up, is there a way to quantify that amount that the 191 folks would be able to put toward this in some fashion so we can get a better picture?
I would say we're not that far along yet. Just we've had people say, yeah, I'd be willing to help. And that's kind of that's as far as we've got.
Tell me each owe you $80. You got it.
I would think an attorney would want to have, if you hire an attorney, they want to know who they're working for too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Kind of the same position we're in here.
And we have an attorney that is willing to take this on.
I see that, yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Well, is there,
Would you be able to put together an HOA and have some officers to get the sanitary district proposal out there?
I don't know what goes into forming an agency. Is it just as simple as file in with the Secretary of State's office, or I mean, I know for like our district, there's a petition, there's a fee to file a petition with the auditor's office, and you have to have so many people's signature within the district, the area to sign the petition to become a sanitary district. I guess I'm not familiar with state law enough to know what stipulations are put on a homeowner, so as far as how you go about getting a petition.
I am in a homeowners association. Matter of fact, I'm on the board, and we have, we have 57 property owners on ours, and so we as a homeowners group assess the homeowners. There's an agreement that everybody signs. It's kind of like a sanitary district in some respects.
I mean, is it driven by state law as far as so I'm a fire guy, so I know how to form a fire district?
I don't know that, but it's a legal document that everybody signs if they buy a piece of property out there you're part, and you pay a monthly fee.
If we had the petitions all ready to go and signed by the next meeting, would we be in a better position?
Is there any other input from the board members? James?
Question. I know the subdivision's pretty good. I know there is talk to bring rapid city water out there. The concern is the infrastructure was never up to par when it was built. Built the sewer in the I don't know why. The cheap comes out expensive. That's like sometimes contractor rule. Have you guys looked into drilling your own well on that property? It might be cheaper than the attorneys.
So the subdivision to the south of us, Morning View.
No, right.
No, but I'm saying they had a
right
well.
in Valley Heights.
Yeah, but they had a well. But the reason we haven't looked at that, I think, that we do know that subdivision, their well failed, and so. But we would look to an engineer probably to have us answer that question as far as drilling whether a well would be something that would be feasible or not. Would be my guess.
That gentleman raised, did you have something you wanted to offer? Did you raise your hand?
Oh, he mentioned Morning View, it's actually Valley View.
Oh, I'm sorry, Valley View. Okay.
Valley View.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Nathan, go ahead then.
A couple of things, I guess. One comment in response to Director Coe's comment, which I think was a good one. I do work for the city of Box Elder. I am familiar with the situation that Valley Heights residents are dealing with. And what I've seen is that they've been putting in a lot of in-kind, what I would call in-kind work, especially these two. They've been spearheading a lot of work up there, try to put this thing together. As they mentioned, they've already, in the past, put in quite a bit of work. They were very close to getting their district formed when basically they didn't have the money to finish it. So I think, in terms of what they've been contributing and what I've I've seen in my past is a lot of times that's the way it goes down, is people provide what's called in-kind services, which is basically their time and effort. So I already mentioned one potential option, and I don't know if that is an option, so I guess that's a question that I have for you. Is there somebody in your subdivision, or could you guys come up with the funds to front whatever you need to get the attorney to push this all the way through the formation of the district, knowing that once that was accomplished, you could right away apply to the board here for the check, if we approve that with those stipulations?
We have a meeting with them on Thursday, so we can bring it up to them about donating towards the cause.
Is this 15,000 strictly attorney fees?
It was a rough estimate.
Okay, so you don't have anything in writing from the attorney?
The attorney thought about 10 to 15,000 is what it would take
To get the district
to
formed.
get
That's
it
just
formed, to
get
look
our
at the
district.
contracts. There's more than just getting the district formed. We're getting charged this $18 fee from the Deutsches. There's nothing legal binding us that we have to pay it, but he's threatened to turn our water off. So they're going to look into that and then just review current contracts and then what if once we do get our district formed, then the engineer just to review everything wants $30,000. So
one thing you might do is, that's just an estimate, 15,000. We usually like to work with hard numbers. If you got a contract with an attorney or an engineer.
As you can tell, we're very early on in this.
I understand.
Very early on in this.
Well, I would suggest if you're going to meet with your attorney to actually get something in writing
okay.
in terms of what their fees are going to be, also for your own good.
Okay.
So, and then maybe come back to us at a different time. I don't know. I don't know if we're ready. I don't think we're ready to take any action here this evening
Okay.
that I can see.
All right. Well,
Is that fair enough?
it is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can I suggest one thing? Go ahead and pick up the piece of paper that's right there on the end, just a copy of that first presentation we heard from Dave Holland. He might be a good person to talk to help you organize. I mean, he wants to organize for us a plan. But you need a plan,
Okay.
really.
Yeah.
So he might be able to help you.
Good. Dan?
And I suggest you sign in if you haven't.
We did.
You did.
Okay.
Yep.
And I also wanted to mention for the recording that Director Bialotta entered at 7:50.
Very good. Thank you so much for coming.
Can I, before
Yeah,
they
go
go,
ahead.
so do you have a plan? What was the estimate based on?
The estimate was just
Was to form the sanitary. Was the fees and lawyer fees and petition fees to form the sanitary district.
Right. So the attorney gave you an estimate, is that right?
roughly verbal estimate.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So
I think we would need something, for a contract or something with a potential contract with the actual dollar amount on it before
Okay.
we would act on it. James?
That, and the one thing I would suggest too, you don't need an attorney to file a sanitation or water district. You can file it at the county, as long as you have so many people sign up for it, it becomes a matter of fact.
Okay.
Just same as a road district. Road districts done all the time. When county services or city services don't apply to them, they'll actually pool their money instead of giving it to the county service that isn't providing the service. So that way their money goes to their own road district fund. That way they can use it to plow the roads and fix their own roads in their subdivision.
I'm the president of the road district.
That's how it goes.
So, yeah.
You do have a title.
Yes. Well, yeah, road, not water, but.
Thank you
Thank you.
again for coming. Appreciate it. Okay. 7 o'clock. Item number 10, funding request from Banner for needs assessment study for stakeholders in the next steps for the Missouri River water in western South Dakota project. Bob, do you want to introduce?
Our speaker tonight, are you going to speak alone, or are you going to be?
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Chapman is from Banner, and it's a continuation of the project that we're wrapping up, and we'll have a report in December. And what we've discovered, and the committee, Director Dakota and Director Jovic and I have had a chance on several occasions to communicate and understand the list of people who are interested in this bringing water from Missouri. And that's really what Dr. Chapman is going to be talking about. It's the very next step and the funding for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Williams, and thanks again to the subcommittee he referenced earlier for working with us, along with Dan Mullally, in moving this project forward to take a look at bringing Missouri River water to western South Dakota. I have with me tonight Zach Darling, whom I think you all have met. You've also met Brad Wormers with Banner, and Joe Munson has been on this project, and you've heard him by phone. And just before Mitchell, they turned around today with the ice storms and things like that, but sent their greetings on over. It does seem a little early, but I guess we're here. Just a quick overview, if you could go to the next slide. West Dakota Water Development District asked School of Mines a while back now to take a look at whether or not their future use water permit should be renewed. Your West Dakota water permit should be renewed. And that was done and presented late last year. Next slide. And there were findings showing that the amount of water that's available during prolonged drought, and I think that's a key word, prolonged drought, was less than what the demand was in the Pennington County area. And many other conclusions were drawn, but the upshot was, the next slide, that a decision was made early last year to check with various water stakeholders in western South Dakota of whether or not there might be an interest in looking at bringing Missouri River water West River. And so a couple of tasks were done. One was to just get on the phone and talk to a number of stakeholders, tribes, communities, counties, other rural water systems over the western South Dakota area to see if they would be interested in at least coming together to discuss this. And by and large, there was a lot of agreement that yes, we would be interested in coming together. And so we are in the final stages of meeting with those stakeholders. In fact, on Thursday, we will be having the fourth and final meeting of that group. And during that time, we've had a lot of informational presentations. And Dan, if I could have you go to the next slide. We've had folks talk about, what does East Dakota Water Development District do? We had the Kurt Katzenstein from the School of Mines, who is the lead author of your report, come and talk to the entire group about that. We had Kurt Feifley with South Dakota Association of Rural Water Systems come and talk. And then also Dave Odens, who is the chief engineer for the Lewis and Clark project for almost 25 years, come and talk as well. We've also had speakers talk about potential funding sources. USDA Rural Development, U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, the state of South Dakota, and then Mario Gonzalez, who's an attorney with the Minnie-Wachoni Water System, talked about the many years it took to put together that project, which was a combination of white communities and Indian communities throughout western South Dakota. And so the group has begun a discussion on what the next steps will be. And as we're getting everyone kind of on the same page, we have begun a discussion about what would those next steps be. And we'll go to that next slide. There are two pieces, and we'll be talking about this needs assessment a little bit more tonight. But that really helps, in short, put a finer point on if a project bringing Missouri water to western South Dakota is really needed. How much water is needed? Where is it needed? And perhaps most importantly for many of the communities, how much does it cost? And doing a needs assessment at this initial stage will help many of these communities really talk about what might be required to move ahead. And then the next slide, one of the other next steps that the group will be talking about, and I've had some individual conversations with folks as well, is, what is that entity to take this idea forward? I think everyone has recognized that West Dakota has been that catalyst to get this ball rolling. But is that the organization to take it forward in the long-term future? Maybe, maybe not. But I think the discussion that we will be having Thursday at our last meeting will talk about, is it time to begin to think about a new corporation? Not a lot unlike a Lewis and Clark, which provides bulk water to many water users in a particular geographic area. But as you can see, there are steps to it. Who would be the incorporators? Who are the leaders of that new group? What would the bylaws be? And finally, what all of those would be rolled up together to form a non-profit corporation to really take a look at it. Because we've talked about where money could come from, and the question, not unlike what you've just talked about, where does that money go? Who's that group? Who's that organization to really move that idea forward? And then we'll pull all of those ideas together. As you'll recall, our work for this initial part is to be finished this calendar year. And so we'll make that final report to you for your last meeting here next month in December. And throughout these conversations, our subcommittee members have said, well, what would it take? And so we have brought to you tonight a proposal to do that needs assessment. And next slide, please. This particular effort to do a needs assessment does a few things for us. It kind of keeps this momentum going of the groups that are interested in exploring it further, but they want to know a little bit more. What would it cost me to have my community be part of this? It helps us really understand what are the more specific requirements. Our goal is, even though no decision has been made of, would we rely more on USDA Rural Development or Bureau of Rec, the state of South Dakota, a needs assessment will help provide that baseline information that could help make application for funds for any of those groups and prepare for that. There are multiple tasks in going through. One is the water usage evaluation. And you had a beginning of that with the South Dakota School of Mines report. But, I've heard from stakeholders as we've gotten together for getting ready for our meetings, well, I don't know if I agree with this number or that number. So part of it would be to be more precise. What will the new census show also, as we move forward? So come up with that water usage evaluation. Then we would look at different alternative designs. Where should that pipeline go if it is to serve other parts of western South Dakota other than just Pennington County? Finally, we would do an environmental screen, and not to be confused with like an environmental impact statement. This environmental screen is stay out of these areas for a variety of reasons. It might be cultural resources, wetlands, biological resources. It helps to just say, this particular alternative that you developed in this task 2 maybe should not be considered because you have too many environmental barriers to cross. And then, of course, put together a summary and final report. And so we have provided to you that idea for that, what that would take to do that proposal for your consideration this evening. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Yes.
So the goal of this primarily would be to hopefully establish this stakeholder coalition that could apply for a project that would go on the state water plan. Is that?
You know, I think having a group form is almost a given. We would want to have, you know, who's interested in moving ahead. And we've got some thoughts on that maybe everybody who wants to be at the table needs to put an ante in, if you will, a little bit. Not a big amount of money, but enough to say, this is important. I've taken it to my governing board, whatever that governing board might be, and they agree to, you know, to be able to talk about it, to be able to provide information, because many of the places we'll be working with has a lot of raw data that we'll want to get and pull together for these sorts of things. But as the group has talked about, we would like, if we move ahead in this direction, a key component is to be part of the state water plan, as well as moving ahead with USDA rural development dollars and Bureau of Reclamation dollars. And I might add that those have been the primary ones we've looked at. In some of our further research, though, we want to do more research on this, but the Environmental Protection Agency has a water system program that we want to take a look at as well.
Hey, Cheryl, I have a question. And this comes from the very overarching research that I've helped with Valley Heights, which is in my district with. And that is surrounding water rights. And I find those to be interesting. I've learned so much about water rights and how you own them and what a hot commodity they really are.
Yes.
Where do those come into play here? And who owns this? Once, I mean, let's say it comes over, everything's beautiful. Who owns the water? And who owns it once it, like, spiders out?
And we'll make sure Dan gets this. I just have one copy.
I'm not giving this to Dan.
In the School of Mines report, they talked about who has these future water use permits. And that is an updated copy. After we've presented this, Jay Gilbertson with East Dakota said,
I'm looking at this like I know what it means.
I have some updates for you. So anyway, West Dakota has future water rights permits, as does the city of Rapid City.
Okay.
So,
10,000 acres.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. I just wonder if
Yeah.
it's going to be in content, because you have all these stakeholders,
Right.
and this is way oversimplifying it, so it tells you the level I'm at, way, way, way down here. But I'm told that these are very, very expensive. They're worth gold. Is this going to be something that our kids, our grandkids fight over down the road? And who determines what those rights are, and who owns these? Are they public? Are they, I don't know what that means. I mean,
well, and with a lot of foresight, as you can see, going back almost 50 years, West Dakota as well as Rapid City got their water rights. And it was during a time when there was a big corporation who wanted to use Missouri River water to slurry coal from Wyoming across a lot of different places in the United States and put it in a pipeline and shoot it off somewhere, And that was denied by the state of South Dakota ultimately, but it kind of woke up people to say, I need to pin down my water rights. Now, one of our speakers was Jay Gilbertson, who has been here. He's East Dakota Water Development District. And as you can see, I think on that list, they have a huge amount of water rights. And he talked about, that oftentimes they are ample in size. And he talked about giving, I don't remember how many it was, to a water district way down in the southeastern part of the state for $1. So agreements can be made as needed and that sort of thing, but you're right. It is a topic of discussion all unto itself. But you have water rights, so
Thank you.
or I should say a permit for them.
10,000 acre feet of future use of water. But water rights, the water in South Dakota is managed by the state of South Dakota, and if you're using public water, you have to have a water right. Unless you're like a residential, you can take up to 18 gallons a minute out of Rapid Creek or wherever for domestic purposes if you live along Rapid Creek without a permit. But if you're, Rapid City has got a lot of water rights on Rapid Creek. And Rapid Creek, there's more water rights, it's called over appropriated. There's more petition for water out of Rapid Creek than at times is available. And those people, like the irrigation ditches downstream, have water rights. Rapid City, Rapid Valley with water. I don't know if Box Elder has any water rights or not. They probably are using somebody else's water rights. But that's for surface water and groundwater.
Okay.
So, and you pay a fee to the state to get it, and then every 7 years you have to renew that permit and pay a small fee to the state of South Dakota to renew those permits. So that's ongoing. So every 7 years, and a couple of years ago, we had to re-up our permit for our 10,000 acre feet for future use.
It's like $900 every.
It was $700 or $800 or $900, something like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
Just a comment for Director Noctigal is the Board of Water Management basically administers water rights, water permits, in the state of South Dakota. And so the term water right is a little bit of a misnomer. They're all water licenses. We don't have a real water market in South Dakota where those are, sold on the free market like they are in some other western states where they are like gold. So we don't have a water market in South Dakota, but the Board of Water Management administers those water licenses, and they can change them based on conditions of what's happened with the water user or what's not happened with the water user. They can transfer points of diversion around. City of Rapid City is, for a good example, is they have purchased and then transferred water rights from down in the valley up to their point of diversion, for the municipal plant over the course of 20 years.
Yeah.
So many things can happen, but it's all administered by the Board of Water Management.
And that's
a state-appointed board.
State-appointed board.
I think there's 9 members right now.
Yeah,
9
something like that.
It's one of the boards that governs, what do they call it? The DENR functions.
They're under DENR.
But they're part of DENR.
Okay.
They're appointed by the governor, and some of the folks that have been there for, I bet they've been there 30 years.
Yeah, over 30.
A long time, like Rod Freeman.
Rod Freeman's been there forever.
That's good to know. So it's not necessarily administered by the city of Rapid City or?
No, the city is another entity that would apply for changes, in the water permitting system. It goes before the Board of Water Management, and that's where sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. It can be a contested case where attorneys are involved. The old Mark Twain saying applies in many cases, unless it's for drinking and water for fighting. It can be very contentious, but they administer all those things.
Okay, very good to know. Thank you.
I was just going to mention, probably more for the audience's benefit, because I think we've talked about this quite a bit on the board, as far as the amount of water that we're looking at. So the 10,000 acre feet that the city, or that West Dakota has, is about what the city of Rapid City uses in a year.
He's about 14,000.
In 2019, they used about 10, so based on my numbers. And then Rapid City has their own allocation of over 5,000, so between the two, we would have enough there to feed everything out here, probably the greater metro area, if we needed to. The other thing I wanted to mention was the calls that Banner has put together as far as the potential stakeholders. I've been really surprised at the eclectic mix of people that have been involved in that. We've had the city of Rapid City, I think, has been on every call. We've had other smaller cities involved in the calls. And on the last call, we had the manager of Mini-Wachoni on the call. Excuse me.
Actually, if I may, Oglala Sioux Tribe Water. So
Okay.
when they get the water, he manages all
Okay.
on Pine Ridge.
Yep. So there's a lot of potential interest in this project. It basically, many of the entities in western South Dakota are interested in this potential project. That's the gist that I got from these calls. This isn't, I don't think this is something that's being pushed out there and forced upon these people. These are people that are voluntarily sitting in on these calls because they're interested in what potential benefit there may be to their community.
Dan?
My sense is that it's premature to pursue this with essentially a second phase until, from my standpoint, until I've seen the results of the first phase. I'm going to offer a motion that we defer action on this until we've had time to receive and digest the results from the first phase.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Ron. Discussion on the motion.
Was it not in the report today?
Pardon me?
Was it not in the reports today? I've been reading through it.
Well, just from the reason I seconded the motion is we don't have the final report from Dr. Chapman and Banner on really what the results of possibly a really critical meeting will be on Thursday in terms of forming a stakeholder group and corporation that could be a really big player in this effort in western South Dakota. The effort morphed from the study we had School of Mines do, which was to deliver water to western Pennington County. So now we're delivering water, I don't know, a lot of different places maybe. So I think it's really critical that that report and the meeting takes place before we take any action on what we might play as a role, going forward in this whole deal. So I just think it's I think we need to have that.
Nathan?
Yeah, in response to that, there is no scope. What we're talking about right now is partnering with a number of different people, including the tribes. So I don't think, to say that we're going to be delivering water all over the state, we don't know. We don't know how this might shake out. It may be that we do that. It may be that we partner with the tribes to beef up existing systems. at this point, we don't know. And that's why we're looking at this to try to flesh that out. What exactly are we going to be talking about here? This is a potential huge project, and when we're at this point, from my perspective, I think what's needed is resources to keep it moving forward so that it doesn't sit and die. So I think it needs to go forward to the next step, and this is what we're talking about.
I understand where you're coming from.
You had your hand up?
I did.
Yeah, go ahead.
I understand where you're coming from, but I do think we need to have, that final resolution of who the players are before a significant amount of money is put forward, maybe by some of those folks. The other part of that is that with an expenditure of that size, I think we are a quasi-governmental agency. It's our obligation to find out what that costs. The gentleman was here earlier from Northwater. Potentially, our other consulting firms would be interested in a needs assessment where the scope would be defined. I think we have to have an RFP for a expenditure of that magnitude for a consulting firm. So, those two reasons alone, I think we need to wait and defer action.
James?
I find it hilarious that all of a sudden you guys want an RFP when you have no problem giving a private developer land for grass. Just keep that in mind. You wanted a landscape lawn.
Let's keep to the subject.
And that's what I am. This is about actually providing water to the citizens across the entire state. Now, we designed and had designed a pipeline that would bring water from the Missouri River to West River with potential spurs going off into other directions. Now, we never designed a spur for those directions, and if somebody wanted to hook up into the main line, they would have to pay for that portion themselves, which, of course, if we had the access, this governing board would then give a yay or nay to all the different entities that want to hook into our line. Because it would be basically West Dakota's line, a portion of it. We would own a portion of it, since a portion of the water would be ours in it.
Well, I personally, I kind of agree with these two guys.
I didn't think I was done yet.
Oh, okay, sorry. Sorry.
The other thing is you want to wait for the last meeting so they can tell them at the last meeting there is no scheduled meeting after this. That has got to be the most brilliant idea I've ever heard of. Let's go to a meeting and tell them there is no further meetings. That's what you just said, because their next meeting is the last. And with no further meeting scheduled, that's what they're going to tell everyone. There's not another further meeting. Genius. Best thing I've heard since this month.
Mr. Chairman, could I just jump in on
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to manage expectations of this report that's coming, because it is not going to be all of the people who are going to sign up to get water. One of the things we've learned through this whole process is that because it's such a long effort to get water on these major pipeline projects, and keep in mind, we're talking about moving bulk water to large transmission lines, not running water systems like many of the South Dakota Association of Rural Water Systems are, but delivering bulk water that they take many years to put together. And that the range of people who are interested and not interested kind of grows and shrinks over time. Many of the Lewis and Clark effort, what we've learned is that as many as 60 entities at one time wanted to be a part of that. But by the time needs assessments were done, figuring out how much it would cost, what the actual needs are, it was down to 20. So the report you'll get in December will show indications of who is interested. And I believe that the board has a couple of letters from key stakeholders expressing interest in participating in a needs assessment. And
you know, potentially we can get more if requested, I would think. And so we'll take a look at that also for the final report as well. So, thank you.
Bob? I think you were given copies of that, one from Rapid City and one from Box Elder.
Right.
And I think Dale Tech from Rapid City signed their interest and would be interested in the project. And then I think it was Bob Kaufman who is here.
Yeah, Bob's here.
City engineer from Box Elder also had expressed interest in this.
Nathan?
I'd like to respond to Director Koth. I don't believe that there's a requirement that we have an RFP. And from my perspective, I think we lucked out in getting Banner. Banner is eminently qualified to do this work. They've done it before. They did it East River with what has now become the largest water district, I think, in terms of customers in the state, with Lewis and Clark. Dr. Chapman is from what I've seen, she's doing a great job for this project. She's like the perfect person to be leading this. And I think when you get involved in a project like this, you don't want to be hopping back and forth between consultants. You start with a consultant and you work with them and help them continue on if you want that project to be successful. We're not, it would be foolish to, at this point, change consultant to somebody different than the people that we're talking about right now. If this project actually happens going forward, there will be plenty of money available for a multitude of consultants down the road. Right now, this project, this potential project, is in its infancy stage. It needs to be nurtured in order to keep it going. We should not be looking at changing from Banner at this point. That would be foolish.
James?
Another, for instance, when it came to RFPs or RFQs, I suggested we do what Wyoming did when it came to the stream gauges. Wyoming bid out their stream gauges and did it for less than half the cost. Nope, everybody barreled ahead and was more than happy to give the government twice the money for half the work. And that's what we did. No request for RFPs or RFQs.
Randy?
I respect what everybody's saying at the table. I will tell you from being on the phone calls and being able to zoom in to, and thank you for accommodating the Thursday meetings because I've not been able to meet that or make them. I've not seen a harder working group of people putting this information together, providing all the details that are needed for people like me. I don't understand all this. I'm very new. There's going to be a day maybe that I can say I'm not new at this, but you make it very easy to understand for people who don't understand. That's important. That's going to be important to the community at large one day. And I myself think that that is a very valuable skill. But aside from all that, I also think that there has been a lot of very hard work in the contacts that have been made and the people that have been pulled in and have been talked to and advice given and just contacts made. So I concur. I do not think it is a responsible idea to move to somebody else.
The motion on the floor is to, could you repeat that motion? I don't think we're talking.
I don't know if I got this right, Director Driscoll. Motion by Driscoll, seconded by Koth, to defer action until the final report is presented.
I don't think we're talking about changing the ratio.
So yeah, I'm just giving my opinion. I'm really sorry. I probably shouldn't have done that. But I will say, and I do have a question. I have a valid question here. What is the harm, because the amount of money that's being asked for takes 2 votes, what is the harm of going forward and discussing a vote today, allowing Banner to pull together their list for the second vote? And again, I'm new, so you guys tell me, what's the harm in doing that?
Right.
I like the idea. I like, bringing water from the Missouri. As a Missouri River historian in grad school, I understand the importance. I understand Lewis and Clark. What concerns me is that there are a lot of stakeholders that are interested, but the only one that's putting capital down is going to be this board, and we haven't received the final report of the first funding request. I would prefer to see what you guys have found out and a formal report before I give more money to that. So I will probably be requesting voting for the deferral.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I think I'd like to wait till the next meeting till we get your final report, and then we can make a decision if we're going to move on.
Well, I disagree with that. I think this could be the first of the funding votes that have to be taken. And we've disappointed other people by voting this way, or we've encouraged people by voting this way in the past, over the last 4 years that I've been here. And that voting for this to move forward, and then being able to talk to the stakeholders with appropriate caveats about whether we can get it to the next step without their involvement, would be the reason that I'll be voting for it, is that you have stakeholders who are going to be in a meeting soon that need to know that the next time they come to the board, this kind of a motion could also be used at that time to move it forward into a board that has all new members that all have to be briefed up on what we've been trying to do. So that would be my comment.
James?
I have a substitute motion to approve it.
Approve what?
Approve the allocation.
The 219,000?
Yep.
There's a second to the motion? Second. Seconded by Bob. Discussion on that?
Well, I had a question before that, is
sorry.
if we choose not to defer a vote, what are we going to be voting on? Will we be saying we're going to give the full $219,000 payable when?
As they build, just like any other.
I can't hear you?
It would probably build out as they build any other contract we've done recently.
Well, she's got it.
Yeah.
Banner has a schedule as to bullet points, finishing those different parts of the agreement. Their needs assessment, alternative analysis design. I mean, there's time schedules for that, so there would be billing, I assume, after you've completed each one of those phases, similar to what you did on the first part here.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah?
Could I ask Dr. Chapman a question? Going back to your slides, assuming you went through these tasks, would there be a point at which you would be able to apply for some of these monies here, or would you anticipate you have to complete it, or is that an unknown?
Well, so if
somebody applying.
Thank you, Dan, for that question, because there, I think, are potential sources for studies, and that's a little ways down the road. We think, funding. We are now looking at federal appropriations are for 2022 fiscal year, I should say. I think it's fair to say that the stakeholders are very familiar with these lines of funding. There's many of the water systems who are participating in these calls who have gotten some, if not money, from all of these organizations. And so it is that kind of a catch-22 about getting far enough along to be a thing that, you know, you can apply for some of these funds and that sort of thing. So I think there is a point to, and we'll be trying to flesh that out in the recommendations about, you know, that long term, you know, users as well as federal programs that apply, you know, that their job is to make water systems and water available to people be utilized first in getting funds for that long term. There's no way this organization under your current structure could build pipelines or connections or intakes or lift stations or any of that. So without a doubt, those funds have to be figured out. And so.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'd like to see the results of the previous study before we move forward. Beyond that, I would really like to see some of these other entities with interest put some skin in the game. It seems odd that West Dakota, who holds a water right but has no need for water, would front the entire cost of the effort. But with that comment, I think we've all had our say. I'll call the question on the substitute motion.
Okay, motion is call the question.
I had a question before he.
I called the question.
Yeah, it hasn't been seconded, so.
Was it seconded?
Is there a second to the motion?
To call in the question?
Is there a second to call the question? Ron's seconded.
Yeah, sure, after we complain.
There's no, there's no discussion on the calling the question, so all in favor of calling the question indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign?
Nay.
No. Let's roll call, please.
Okay, the roll call for calling the question. Harris?
Aye.
Bialotta?
No.
Mack?
Aye.
Williams? No. Nodigal?
No.
Jovic?
No.
Driscoll?
Yes.
Bierke?
Yes.
Koth? Okay, motion
Fails.
Fails. 2/3.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have my hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
First things first. The reason why we were putting in money is because we own the water. We would then be the water seller in bulk. So we might have skin in the game because we have the most profit. And anybody that claims otherwise is either foolhardy or wrong. The reason why Rapid City is also interested, they'd have skin in the game because they have bulk water rights. And after this gets off the ground, I fully admit and believe that Rapid City will be the first one to jump in, if not Box Elder. We just heard from a housing subdivision that's fed by Box Elder that Box Elder can't feed. That is one of probably 50 subdivisions I know about that Box Elder cannot support. And you want to talk expansion in South Dakota from the B-21, anybody moving from California, Oregon, Washington, Minnesota, Wisconsin, guess where they're coming? They're coming here. And now we have no water. They're not going to go east of Rapid because there's nothing there. There's no water. Box Elder can't support them, and neither can Rapid Valley Water. So we need to provide that water and start looking now because our own models show us short in our lifetime.
Nathan?
I wanted to respond to Director Driscoll's comment in regard to why are we doing this. I think we're doing this because this is what we're supposed to be doing. We are the West Dakota Water Development District. It's in our name, water development. This is what we are supposed to do. This is what we were designed to do. And I guess it's one of the beefs that I've had with some of the things that we've done in the past. We've funded these projects that, you know, certain people find interesting. Well, this is actually something that we will need. We do need it now based on the study in times of drought. We need it right now. We will definitely need this at some point in time in the future. And this isn't one of those things that happens overnight. Lewis and Clark has been in development now for 30 years, okay, and they're still going. So we needed to start this probably a decade ago, but be that as it may, here we are. We need to move this thing forward. In response to Director Mack's comment, I would say that Director Noctegal's comment was very appropriate. If you don't feel comfortable with it before seeing the report, we've got 2 votes. We're going to see the report at our next meeting. If you're not happy with it at that time, then vote to kill it. But from my perspective, this project is exactly why we exist. This is what we should be embracing. I guess I don't understand why we have people that are reluctant to move forward on something like this when this is exactly what we should be doing.
I think that this, if we vote for it, opens it up so that we can actually go to get more funding. If we can figure out a way to quantify and identify, that's how you go to get on the very first step, which is part of the state control. What's the name of that, Doctor? The water...
The state water plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to have this kind of a plan for that, so you can take the very first step into the formal part of creating possibly a non-profit organization to take this away from us and finish a project 20 years down the road that I'll never see. But I'm going to quit there.
Any other comments? The motion on the floor is for approval of the contract with Banner Associates for those tasks identified in the proposal. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Or no?
Aye.
No.
So we'll have a roll call.
Roll call.
Yeah.
A roll call on the substitute motion. Bialotta.
Aye.
Mack.
Nope.
Williams.
Aye.
Nodigal.
Yes.
Jovic.
Yes.
Driscoll.
No.
Bjorky.
No.
Coth.
No.
Harris.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-4.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now let's take a little break here for anybody that would have to go to the bathroom. It's 8 o'clock. 10 minutes.